Heartless, Forbidden, Book 1. Written by Suzana Thompson. Narrated by Paulina Schubert. Chapter 19. I stared at my face in amazement. The makeup artist had somehow managed to make me look beautiful and alluring. Skylar and I had marveled over how different some celebrities looked without makeup compared to when they were wearing makeup, but I hadn't ever imagined that such a transformation was possible for a regular person. My makeover was much more dramatic than Skylar's had been. With my cover model face and hair and wearing a sexy lace mini dress, I looked nothing like my usual self. My brunette hair seemed to complement the rich burgundy color of the dress, and I had never looked better in my life. Catherine had insisted that a dress like this required heels, but I had chosen short heels that I could walk in easily. They were open shoes with only one strap around the ankle and one across the toes, which made them look barely there. The effect added to the amount of leg I was showing. "I knew you'd look stunning," Catherine exclaimed as I stepped out of the dressing room to show her how the dress looked on me. She had told me to take my shower before we left the house for my makeover so that I wouldn't ruin my hair or makeup later. After my appointments with the stylist and the makeup artist, she had taken me shopping, claiming that the things we had bought last weekend wouldn't do for this party. "You want to get this guy's attention, right?" "Right," I had agreed, imagining the look on Cade's face when he saw me. I was riding high on feeling pretty. It was something I hadn't experienced in a long time. I hadn't thought about my looks at all since Lucas broke up with me, so it was fun to feel like a supermodel. It was all due to the magic of makeup, of course, but I would enjoy being Cinderella for one night. Too bad I didn't have a Prince Charming to enchant. I had decided that the best way for Jenna to arrive at the party was with Catherine and me, so we stopped to pick her up on the way home. I was very surprised when I saw her. Although she was also wearing a mini dress, she looked positively demure compared to me. She had chosen an understated navy blue color and was showing no cleavage. She was also wearing minimal makeup. Her entire look was simple and plain, and it wasn't at all what I had expected from her if she was trying to win Cade back. "Hi," I said. "You look nice." She took in my altered appearance. "You look hot. Who's the lucky guy?" "Why does there have to be a guy?" I demurred. "Can't I just want to look good?" "Who's going to be at this party?" she questioned. "You, me, Cade's friends," I replied. "Some of the neighbors, too." "Ah," she said, "trying to impress the new neighbors. I get it." I hadn't put any thought into that at all, but I let her think that was the reason. "Have you met Cade's mom?" I asked. "No," she answered. "I don't think she's come back here since she got divorced from his dad. Cade always goes to visit her." "She's really nice," I told her as we walked toward my car where Catherine was waiting for us. I introduced Jenna to her, and I drove them both to the house. We entered it through the garage, so Cade didn't see us right away. Catherine had agreed to Jenna sleeping over tonight. She only knew that Jenna was my friend, and I was happy that Cade wouldn't be able to contradict me without causing a scene. If I had thought that he ever had any real feelings for Jenna, I would have respected his wishes not to bring his ex over. But I knew how selfish and unfeeling he was, so I wasn't worried that she had broken his heart. He had banished her just because he could. But I was undermining him tonight. For once, he was not going to get his way. His gaze fixed on me first when we walked into the living room where he was seated on the couch. He lifted his eyes from his phone at our entrance and he stared at me. In that moment, I forgot myself and stared back at him. I hadn't seen him in anything but basketball shorts since the wedding. He was still wearing a t-shirt now, but he had paired it with dark gray dress pants. The black t-shirt suited his dark eyes and dark brown hair, and it was more fitted to his body than his other t-shirts. It emphasized his fit physique, and I was momentarily distracted by the sight of him. "Isn't she gorgeous?" Catherine inquired in delight, her voice breaking the silent spell I'd been under. Cade didn't reply as he continued to stare at me. He made eye contact with me, and his expression became calculating as he studied me. He was trying to read me, but I kept my expression neutral. I had been prepared for this, and I didn't want him to guess my motives. Let him wonder why I had gotten this makeover for this party. "Do you know Lexi's friend, Jenna?" Catherine asked. Cade's gaze shifted from me to Jenna, and he scowled when he saw her. He directed his displeasure at me with a hard look before he glanced at his mom. "I know her," he clipped out. Catherine's tone was uncertain. Well, have a seat, girls. I'll go check on things in the kitchen." She was having Lauren make appetizers for the party, and there would also be waiters circulating with non-alcoholic drinks. Catherine had promised Cade that she would stay in her room for the duration of the party, but having servers there was probably her way of keeping us all in line. The catering staff were all adults who would summon her if there was a problem. I was actually relieved to know that this party would be tame. It would be a safe way to step out of my comfort zone and mingle with people I didn't know. Although the change in my appearance hadn't been undertaken for the purpose of impressing the new neighbors, it wouldn't hurt to make a good impression on them. Cade's comments about my mom still rankled me. I didn't want anyone else thinking that we were beneath them. Some of the neighbors had been invited to the wedding, but they would have more opportunity to judge me at this smaller gathering. I was aware that whatever impression I made on them now would reflect back on my mother. People tended to think like mother, like daughter, and vice versa. If they thought I was trash, then they'd think my mother was trash too. I wasn't going to let that happen. If she really was going to spend her time attending charity luncheons, I didn't want these people shunning her. I would try to make friends with their daughters for her sake. 2 neighborhood girls were the first ones to arrive at the party. They might have been at the wedding, but there had been so many people that I couldn't remember them specifically from the blur of faces. The 2 blondes looked like sisters, and that was proven to be correct when Cade introduced them to me. Their names were Taylor and Morgan Stewart, and I was relieved to see that I had gotten the look right for this party. They were also wearing mini dresses and had hair and makeup that could easily grace the cover of a magazine. I seemed to meet their approval because they didn't act snobby toward me. Taylor appeared to be more interested in Cade anyway, and she made sure to find out if he had a girlfriend. "Cade," she said in a flirty tone, "I thought you forgot about us. You never visit us anymore, when we used to be such good friends." I didn't miss that innuendo, and I wondered what kinds of benefits their friendship had had. Taylor's blue eyes zeroed in on Jenna. "Is she your girlfriend?" "No." Cade replied in such a curt tone that both sisters stared at him with startled expressions. "This is my friend, Jenna," I said as I moved closer to her for moral support. Cade hadn't spoken a word to her, and he had ignored her during the introductions. She had to be feeling the sting of his rejection, and I was trying to make her feel as welcome as I could. "She goes to school with us," I added to make it clear that she was one of us and not the intruder Cade's attitude conveyed she was. "Your dad's still making you go to public school?" Taylor questioned Cade in amusement. Morgan frowned at her sister before smiling at Jenna. "It's nice to meet you, Jenna. Are you in the same grade as Cade and Lexi?" "It's nice to meet you too," Jenna replied. "Yes, I'm in the same grade with them." "You're lucky," Morgan remarked. "You guys will all be out of school a year before me. I hate school." "No, you don't," Taylor contradicted her. "You're just saying that to be dramatic. It's her age," she explained to us like she was so much older than her sister. 16 plus being the baby of the family. "Oh, stop acting like you're so much more mature than me," Morgan exclaimed. "You almost broke your tailbone trying to imitate that scene from Risky Business, and that was only a month ago." Cade laughed as Taylor glared at her sister. "She's lying," she declared. "That was her." "It was not," Morgan retorted in outrage. "You had Martha wax the floor so you could slide across." The doorbell interrupted their bickering, and Cade went to answer it. Another neighbor had arrived, a guy named Brandon. Just as Cade introduced him to me, the doorbell rang again. More people continued to arrive in shorter intervals, including people I recognized from school. Cade had a smirk on his face when he introduced me to his friend Tyler and his girlfriend Caitlin. It was the guy I had claimed to have a crush on, and I was dismayed to realize that he was the same guy who'd been with Cade when Skylar had spoken to him on the first day of school. He had been ogling Skylar the entire time she'd been talking to Cade. The jerk had a girlfriend, but he'd been looking at Skylar's body like he was trying to see through her clothes. The memory made it hard not to show my dislike of him, and I focused my attention on his girlfriend. She seemed to be nice, but Cade immediately ruined her impression of me. "Lexi had a little crush on you," he told Tyler. "But that was before she knew you have a girlfriend." Caitlin's friendly expression tightened, and I wanted to smack Cade. Denying it would only make me look like I was trying to save face. I was grateful for one of the waiters walking up to offer us beverages right then. I took a sip of ginger ale and hoped that somebody would change the subject. "That was a while ago," Cade continued. "I think you've been replaced because she hasn't mentioned you at all lately. She got into it with her best friend over a guy, but she won't tell me who it is. He must be something if he's got 2 girls fighting over him." I could now feel the weight of Jenna's stare, and my desire to hit Cade had gotten more intense. The conceited jerk had found a way to secretly inflate his massive ego even more, and he was smugly rubbing it in and undermining my plans to take him down a peg or two. Nothing was turning out the way I had planned. "You don't have to fight over me," Brandon quipped, lightening the mood and making everybody laugh. I smiled at him and he winked at me. "Tell me about yourself, Lexi," he urged. "Do you like Italian food? Sharing dessert? Goodnight kisses?" I laughed in response to his flirting and saw an opportunity to shake off Cade's unflattering comments about my love life. "I like all those things." "She doesn't like sharing," Cade interjected flatly. "She's an only child." "My lady shall have her own dessert," Brandon said with a flourish. "What do you say, fair maiden? Shall we dine next Friday night?" Since Caitlin was watching me, my answer had a lot to do with easing her suspicion that I was after her boyfriend. "Why, yes, kind sir," I hammed it up. "I would be delighted to dine with you." "Hey, no fair," a guy complained as he joined our group. "I haven't even talked to her yet." "You snooze, you lose," Brandon told him. "She wouldn't want your ugly ass anyways," he said with a grin. He clearly knew the ridiculousness of those joking words, because the guy he was speaking to was one of the most gorgeous guys I had ever seen. His blue eyes were so vivid that it was hard to look away from them. His beautiful face was the kind that should be on the movie screen where everyone could see it. He was almost too impossibly good-looking to be real. "Hi, Logan," Taylor said in the flirty tone she'd been using with Cade. "I didn't know you would be here. When did you get back?" "Hello, Taylor," he acknowledged her coolly without answering her question. "Morgan," he said in a much warmer tone. "I think you've gotten even more beautiful while I was gone. When are you gonna marry me?" Morgan blushed. "Hi, Logan," she responded shyly. This is Cade's new sister, Lexi." "Stepsister," Cade and I both said at the same time. Logan's eyebrows lifted before his mouth quirked into an amused smile. "Nice to meet you, Lexi the stepsister. I'm Logan Cade, otherwise known as the Superior Cade." "Is your last name really Cade?" I questioned, wondering if he was playing a joke on me. "It is," Morgan confirmed, gazing at him with such adoration that I knew she had written Morgan Cade as she fantasized about marrying him. It was also obvious to me that he didn't take her crush on him seriously. His flirting with her wasn't real, but he apparently felt a friendly affection for her. It spurred her hope, however, for a romantic relationship with him. He snagged one of the canapes off a tray and popped it in his mouth. "Love these," he mumbled. Morgan grabbed one too, but Taylor spoke in exasperation before she could bite into it. "What are you doing? You hate shrimp." "I do not," Morgan argued. "Then why do you always refuse to eat them?" Taylor challenged. "I'm eating them now," Morgan retorted and took a bite. She valiantly kept her expression neutral as she chewed. I felt bad for her being put on the spot and feeling like she couldn't back down in front of her crush. Her sister shouldn't have drawn attention to her like that. Now Morgan literally had to swallow down her aversion to shrimp so she wouldn't look foolish for taking food she disliked just because Logan liked it. "Good," she mumbled, and quickly took a sip of her beverage to wash down the taste. "If it's so good, aren't you going to eat the rest of it?" Taylor asked mockingly. Morgan bit the bullet and shoved the rest of it into her mouth. She put a thumb up for Logan's benefit, but she took a big gulp of her drink afterwards. "Logan," Taylor said in a syrupy, sweet voice, "you should take Morgan skiing sometime. She loves skiing. You guys have so much in common." Morgan was glaring at Taylor, but her expression changed when Logan spoke. "Sure," he said. "We'll go this winter." "I'd love that," Morgan responded enthusiastically. "Yeah," Taylor agreed. "She'd love that. Her favorite part is being up high on the lift." I could see that this was another dig at her sister, so I shifted the pressure off Morgan. "I've never been skiing," I announced. "I can teach you," Logan offered. My intention hadn't been to fish for an invite from him, and I didn't want Morgan to think that I was interested in her crush. Thanks, but Cade said he'd teach me. I took a gamble saying that, but Cade didn't contradict me. Yeah, he told Logan, and you'd be bored on the kiddie slope anyway after skiing in the Alps. Logan looked surprised. How'd you know I went skiing in the Alps? Facebook, Cade replied. I didn't know you still kept up with me, Logan said. Your invite to this party was the first I've heard from you since you transferred schools. I keep up with all of you, Cade stated. It wasn't my choice to drop you as friends. What do you mean? Brandon questioned. We didn't drop you. My dad made me do it, Cade told him. It was the only way I could stop him from sending me to military school. What? Taylor exclaimed. Is that why you broke up with me? Yes, Cade answered. I thought it was because... She trailed off and dropped her gaze to the floor. But why? She demanded as she glanced up again. I thought your dad liked me. It wasn't you, Cade said. I did something, and my dad decided to take everything away from me. That's so unfair, Taylor complained. What'd you do? Tyler asked curiously. With the distraction of all of Cade's other friends, I had forgotten about my faux crush. Cade apparently hadn't shared his call girl story with him, and none of his old friends seemed to know about it either. I wondered why he had told me if he hadn't told his friends. Logan stepped forward and spoke to Morgan. Are you feeling okay? Yes, she replied. Why? I looked at her and saw what had drawn his concern. Your face, I said, just as she scratched at it. What? She asked worriedly. Oh my God, Taylor exclaimed as she moved closer to see. You've got red blotches on your face. Morgan was horrified as she looked up to me for confirmation and saw me nodding. She covered her cheeks with her hands, but suddenly sneezed. 2 more sneezes followed in quick succession. Is it allergies? I questioned. Yeah, Jenna agreed. Those look like hives. I only have spring allergies, Morgan said, just while the trees are blooming. She sneezed again, and I remembered something that worried me. The shrimp. Are you allergic to shellfish? No, Taylor answered. She just doesn't like them. She might have become allergic to them, I said. It happened to a lady my mom worked with. I didn't add that the woman had nearly died from it. Maybe you should go to the hospital to make sure, I suggested. The hospital, Taylor repeated in a tone that conveyed how ridiculous she thought that idea was. She can just take some Benadryl. Do you have any, Cade? Before he could respond, a panicked expression overtook Morgan's face, and she sprinted away from us. Logan and I followed her, but he was faster and caught up to her as she came to a sudden stop and bent down to vomit on the floor. Some of it splattered on his shoes, but his face showed none of the disgust that was probably evident on mine as I grimaced. Ew, Taylor voiced from behind me. Morgan stopped retching and wiped her mouth with the back of her hand as she straightened up. Call an ambulance, Logan said tersely as he glanced in my direction. I hesitated. Maybe she'll feel better now. The hives are worse and her lips are swelling, he said with a fierce glare at me. Call an ambulance now. I've got it, Cade said as he came up beside me with his phone in his hand. Taylor hurried past us as Logan lifted Morgan into his arms and started carrying her away. Morgan, she yelled, sounding upset now. Oh my God, is she okay? Help me splash some water on her face, Logan told her as she caught up to him. As Cade spoke to the emergency operator, I ran upstairs and shouted for Catherine. She came out of her room, and I filled her in on what was happening with Morgan as I tore into the master bedroom and searched the master bathroom for Benadryl. I couldn't find any, so Catherine and I went downstairs to check on Morgan. Her lips were noticeably swollen, but she seemed to be breathing okay. She looked miserable, though, and Taylor looked scared as she hovered beside the couch where Morgan laid with a wet washcloth on her forehead. Everyone else watched anxiously. Cade kept pacing to the front door to look for the arrival of the ambulance. He returned first with Morgan and Taylor's parents, and then with the paramedics after several more trips back and forth. Relief washed over me once the medics took over, but Cade stood rigidly watching them. Morgan's mom went in the ambulance with her, and her dad was driving there with her sister. The rest of us wandered back into the living room after the ambulance pulled away. As people began to talk about what had happened, I saw Cade slip away, and I followed him. He went into a room that looked like an office combined with a living room. It had a big desk, some easy chairs, and a fireplace. There were shelves and cabinets lining the wall behind the desk. Cade opened one cabinet and pulled out a bottle of liquor and a shot glass. Want one? he asked me as he looked up from the bottle in his hand. No, I replied. You should get back before your mom catches you. He set the glass down on the desk before taking the cap off the bottle. I stepped further into the room as he poured himself a shot. He downed it and poured another one. Why are you getting drunk here by yourself? I questioned him. Pour me one too, Catherine said. I turned around to see her standing in the doorway. She stepped inside and walked to the desk where Cade had set out another shot glass. He filled it for her, and she picked it up. Cade took his, and they looked at each other before downing them simultaneously. The doorbell rang as they set them down. Will you please get that, Lexi? Catherine requested. Yeah, sure, I responded. I left that strange scene and went to open the door to more of Cade's friends from school. There was a group of them, some of whom I knew were cheerleaders and others were guys I assumed played sports. I felt uncomfortable greeting them without Cade, but they had no problem entering his house. Let's get this party started, one of the guys shouted. The rest of them whooped and barreled past me. The girls giggled and glanced around at their surroundings as they followed them. I walked more slowly behind them, hoping that Catherine would resume her role as chaperone and keep things from getting out of control.